What have we got? We have, where are my notes? 2009. The year is 2009. The film is The Boat That Rocked. And it's directed by Richard Curtis, who co-wrote Blackadder. And he also wrote some material for Not the 9 O'Clock News. And he also did a few other films as well. This Christmas film is absolutely full of high-profile stars. It's set in 1966. It's entirely fictional and depicts a pirate radio station called Radio Rock in the North Sea. The DJs aboard are rebellious, zany and hip, playing rock music all day and all of the night. Although fictional, it's tempting to think of it as depicting the story of Radio Caroline and Radio London. It isn't. Particularly for legal reasons, it isn't. Both pirate radio stations, Radio Caroline and Radio London, broadcast from ships in the North Sea, and many of their DJs would, in real life, move over to the legit radio stations such as Radio 1 when it opened. A little personal admission here. I started listening to Radio 1 when it first started. I was sort of 6 or 7 years old, and I still listen to it every day. It's good. Why did we have pirate radio stations in the North Sea in the first place? Well, imagine a time when pop music was emerging, but the ways of getting it to the public were less developed. Records sold, obviously, but they would only sell if the public could hear them frequently. Yet established radio stations were not keeping up with this new market, and also broadcasting laws effectively prevented such rapid change. So to sidestep this, part of the appeal of early rock music was that it was somewhat difficult and precious to encounter. You had to seek it out. You had to put the effort in. The music on the established radio and television stations was mainly for your parents, you see. There was a time when pop music wasn't absolutely everywhere, whenever you wanted it. Most people of that era remember listening to a transistor radio late at night under the covers so that your parents couldn't hear you. Entrepreneurs would set up offshore radio stations, and that skirted around the legality of broadcasting on the medium wave band as they were doing it from international waters. Radio Caroline was the first British offshore pirate station. It copied the existing Scandinavian and Dutch radio pirates, and their boat, the MV Mi Amigo, was in an extreme state of disrepair as a ship, but it was constantly well maintained as a radio station. The engines would never work anymore, and even if they could, they had no way of steering the ship. In January 1966, it lost anchor in a storm, and the Mi Amigo ran aground at Frinton-on-Sea, and the crew and the staff were rescued, and they were unharmed. Anyway, back to The Boat That Rocked. The film doesn't pretend to depict Radio Caroline, but it certainly conveys the same atmosphere and the feelings of the time. The music within the film is just delicious. Really, really works well. And the story is, well, I won't go into the story. It's fun. A lot of things happen. Good times, bad times. There's not really a single protagonist, but there's certainly a villain. There's a government minister, Sir Alistair Dormandy, played by Kenneth Branagh, who has made it his goal to shut down Radio Rock and their like. He and his sidekick create the Marine Offences Act, which in reality and in relation to the real Caroline and Radio London and others, that was called the Marine Broadcasting Offences Act, 1967. And that was intended to also cover the prospect of pirate TV broadcast from an aircraft. That was a real thing that could have happened in 1967. Bill Nighy in the film plays Quentin, who runs Radio Rock. He's a highly enjoyable character in this film, really does it well. The fictional DJs on board Radio Rock's boat include Philip Seymour Hoffman in one of his last roles. Philip Seymour Hoffman as the Count, an American DJ loosely based on the Emperor Roscoe, who was a real DJ on Radio Caroline. Rhys Ifans as the very popular DJ Gavin Kavanagh, difficult to say. Nick Frost does a really good piece as DJ Dr. Dave. Chris O'Dowd as Simple Simon Swafford, their breakfast DJ. Now, O'Dowd drew inspiration from Tony Blackburn, the morning DJ on pirate radio station Radio Caroline in the 1960s. Tom Wisdom as Midnight Mark, the nighttime DJ who hardly ever speaks. Ralph Brown plays Smooth Bob Silver in the 3 to 6 a.m. shift, a bit like John Peel perhaps, although in this character he's a bit more like a hippie. Emma Thompson's in the film too. Tony Blackburn was the first DJ to open Radio 1's transmission. He's at Tony Blackburn on Twitter now. and he still emits a stream of jokes every day. Still doing well. Johnny Walker is always on Twitter as @PirateJW. Emperor Roscoe's still around, which is nice. But Kenny Everett, he was a Caroline DJ, and John Peel, he was a Radio London DJ. They're no longer with us. John Peel came over from Radio London to Radio 1. But on Radio London, he did the night show and found that he could dispense with the playlist and the adverts because nobody was checking. And he just played what he liked and recited bad poetry. Nobody complained. When the film was being shot, Curtis screened Robert Altman's MASH, the film, during rehearsals to try and embody the type of film that they were making. It's basically community between characters, overheard conversations, moments of interaction, and the sense that the camera is watching something happening in front of it rather than it being staged. And they practiced DJing in a mock radio studio. They were taught queuing up records and working the cart machines. They met with ex-pirate DJ Johnny Walker. By the end of the training, the actors had to record an hour-long show, which they said were going to be used for the film. The film didn't do well for various reasons. People were expecting something like the style of Notting Hill or Four Weddings. It's not that style. It was released against some of the biggest blockbusters in years, which is unfortunate. It was also re-edited for America by removing 20 minutes of the best parts, leaving a film that made very little sense, and then given the useless name Pirate Radio. And as a result of the American release, reviewers, especially reviewers who had seen both cuts, were quite savage to it. I really like it, though. It always makes me feel good, very good. And it's a better film than the reviewers said. It deserves better than it got. It also features the AKG D12 microphone as their vocal microphone, although today you'd use that microphone as a drum mic. And also there's a very good set of deleted scenes out there which you can search for on YouTube, which are excellent, and they're really good. They weren't deleted for any other reason that they had to cut something. So, where's the top? The Boat That Rocked, 2009. Thank you very much.